Kamal Santamaria. This is Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera, your weekly look at the world of business and economics. This week, Africa and India. There's a new partnership forming on the global stage, and it might just be a real challenge to China's dominance. We'll tell you about some of the successes and challenges ahead for Africa and its partners. Also this week, more on Volkswagen, its first loss in 15 years as it reels from the emissions cheating scandal. But how much will it really end up paying in fines and recall costs? And will these workers manage to keep their jobs in the process? And a demographic time bomb which has been holding back growth. China ends its 1970s one-child policy as part of a new economic plan. You know, if the continent of Africa were to have a best friend, we'd probably say it was China. It's invested billions there, building infrastructure and doing business well before other countries tried to get in. But now, another country with more than a passing acquaintance with Africa wants to cement its future there, and that is India. Case in point, New Delhi has just hosted an India-Africa summit this past week, and leaders and business players from every African country came along. India's big push was that it wanted to promote a relationship between continent and subcontinent, but one that was particularly beneficial to Africa. Many saw that as a dig at China, which is often seen as just coming into Africa and making lots of money for itself. India is also looking for political influence, seeking support from the 54 African nations to become a permanent member of the UN Security Council. Why the big love-in over Africa now? Well, it's the second largest and second most populous continent on Earth. Well over 1 billion people are living there in 2015. And that translates into economic growth. The total GDP of the African continent is now over $2.8 trillion and has been growing at over 5% every year. Now, yes, China is a big factor. Have a look at this. Chinese trade with Africa, $160 billion a year. For the record, the European Union remains the biggest trading partner. And at this stage, India is less than half of that. Trade is only $71 billion a year. It's targeting $90 billion, though, by the end of this year. But unlike China, which tends to invest in huge infrastructure and vanity projects, India is relying on its corporations and a large diaspora to win over hearts and minds. And you know, there are successes. In a moment, Harun Mutasa will take a look at how Zimbabwe is looking to India to help revive its industry. But first, India's largest automobile maker, Tata, is in Senegal, where it's replacing polluting French-made vans with Indian-made buses. Nicholas Hart starts us off.
Every morning, no matter how hard she tries, Abijata is always running late for work. She works in town but lives in the suburbs. Finding reliable transportation isn't easy. This is the best option. They're called car rapide, but they're anything but fast. Frequent stops, breakdowns, and traffic congestion makes this the most unpleasant part of Abby's day.
I dread this moment, where I have to sit in here for hours endlessly. The buses always smell of gasoline. It's such an unpleasant start to the day.
Imported from France, these old Renaults have been around since the 1970s. Sitting, these drivers have added colorful touches to the exteriors, but on the inside, the basic mechanics haven't changed in more than 40 years. The state wants to get rid of them in a bid to reduce pollution and the volume of traffic.
These vans are dangerous and not adapted for a modern city. Our goal is to replace them with vehicles that will offer more comfort and a better service for people working in town.
Bus drivers had their say on which manufacturer would replace the car rapide. Much to everyone's surprise, they chose the Indian car maker Tata to revamp the entire transport system, outbidding Chinese and European car makers, including Renault, who offered better quality buses that pollute a lot less than Tata. But the Indian car maker was cheaper and willing to modify its vehicles to adapt to Senegalese driving. The traffic in India is very similar to the traffic that you find here in Dakar, and so the Indian manufacturer believes that it has the know-how and the fleet of vehicles adapted for this environment to get people from the suburbs into the city and decongest this growing metropolis.
We understand the kind of vehicles that are required here. We ourselves are a developing country. We do understand the kind of technology which is required.
And so Tata is betting on this, the magic ace. With 1 million sold in India, it's a no-frills van. There are no windows in the back or electronics, just a strong engine. But it still needs to convince African consumers. Tata is testing the magic in Senegal and had to already make changes, more headroom and better suspensions, making Abby's commute home a little less bumpy, a little more comfortable, but still a long journey home.
Zimbabwe's manufacturing sector used to employ more than 200,000 people. Now it's fewer than half that figure. So government officials are looking to India for help in reviving struggling companies, like the Zimbabwe Iron and Steel Company, now called New Zim Steel. India, an emerging market, stands to benefit from Zimbabwe's iron ore exports. Zimbabwe has been trading with India for decades, but there have been problems.
It's a long-standing relationship. But given the fact that I would say the economy of Zimbabwe has been going through some difficult times, and that has obviously had an impact between the trade and the economic ties between the two countries. And so currently I would say that things are somewhat dormant.
Over the years, thousands of people have lost their jobs because of widespread electricity shortages, falling manufacturing output, and businesses downsizing or closing.
I was born in 1954.